Thank you very much for joining us here on an Export Sales Day Thursday, as we like to call it. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, and we're watching your ag trade, getting set up for our daytime session here right now. And to do that, we go to the phone and talk with Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. He joins us right now. And Rich, the export sales numbers are now out. Wanted to get your thoughts on if we saw any surprises on the key crops here.
Yeah, I think we did in a few areas here. As far as the corn here, 814,000 tons. There's this one. This was a little over the trade's average guesses for today's numbers. Soybeans, though, only 1.016 million tons. In this case, this was a bit off those past 2 weeks at 2.4, and in fact 3 million tons. So a little bit lower than the trade was expecting. I'm not sure if that'll pressure us too much for today's trade. 341,000 tons here for the soy meal side of things here. Pretty good sales there. Oil, 17,000 tons. And wrapping up as far as the main five here, wheat, 492,000 tons. This was over the trade's expectation on the wheat end of things here. Now looking over at sorghum, 116,000 tons. That actually was pretty good over the past couple weeks. And rice, 47,000.7. And wrapping up with the cotton here, 190,000 tons for cotton. Good to see this one, but certainly a little bit under the past couple weeks here.
I see where on the corn number it looks like the biggest buyer was again Mexico. Are you surprised to see that?
You know, in the grand scheme of things, Mexico has been slacking off a little bit here up until this past couple of weeks. So at this point in time, I'm not going to get too excited about it, but it is very reasonable. You know, Mexico does import about 94% of their corn from the U.S. So even though they might be a little slow in the past few weeks, looks like we're now getting back to the pace we need to be for normal Mexico sales.
And I see on the soybeans, they did have China noted as a buyer of about 608,900 metric tons of soybeans during the past week, but that includes 254,000 metric tons that had been switched from what had formerly been called unknown destinations. I guess no surprise there.
It's certainly a good point right there, and that is certainly true. And we more or less kind of look at both China and the unknown category, and I think most people more or less combine those together these days, assuming that about 75 to 80% of those unknown sales are usually China. So as far as these numbers there, we are getting active sales. I think that's a very strong point for us. Still a little behind where we need to be on the soybean pace, but perhaps in a few weeks we'll make it up here.
Well, let's take a look at our Globex trade, see what happened overnight on the corn market here first. We had the corn a little bit firmer. We had December corn showing a last trade of $3.50 1/4. That would be 2 cents higher. On the soybean side, as we switch over there, we had a little bit of firmness as well. November 4 1/4 cents higher at 9.62 1/2 per bushel. Meanwhile, on the wheat trade, that has been struggling here lately. It turned around and went lower yesterday, but we had December Chicago wheat showing a very small gain overnight, penny and a quarter higher at 4.43 1/4. On the Kansas City wheat market, we had December 1 3/4 higher overnight at 4.37 3/4 per bushel. And Minneapolis spring wheat trade, we had December up 7 at 6.17, and that was at the high of the overnight session, about a dime off its low, so a rebound there on the nearbys. Cotton market overnight had December 38 points higher at 69.18 cents per pound. Real quickly here, Rich, what do you hear out of South American weather? It's planting season there.
And that is going to be a very big issue. I'm glad you mentioned that here. As far as the Brazil situation, mostly dry in that center-west region as well as the northern areas for the next 10 days. So maybe we're going to get a little concern here suggesting that, hey, Brazil had been dry before this period even started, and yet it's still continuing. So on this end, a little concerned about that, probably in the trade's mindset, like a little premium here for today's trade. Argentina, as it stands right now, for the most part, will be good for spring field work. No rain overnight, but certainly the next few days will be something to watch here.
Always kind of an awkward transition as we focus on harvest pressure here and then gradually shift over to watching South American developments, but it's that time of year. Rich, I'll bring you back here in just a moment, and you and I will talk about what is going on in the livestock trade, setting up for a Thursday when we come back right after this. We're back. We're talking with Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois, and we are going to be talking about export sales. Now, we talked about the crop side here just a moment ago. Rich, we also had some numbers that came out for beef and pork exports. I wanted to share those with our viewers and listeners. On the beef side, we had beef exports this time around of 22,700 tons. That's combining this calendar year when we had 20,800 tons, and also an additional amount for 2018. Of course, we're not that far away from 2018 anymore, and net sales for that calendar year added up to 1,900 metric tons. The portion for this 2017 year on the beef side turned out to be 30% higher than last week and up 70% from the 4-week average. What a comeback on the beef exports here.
Certainly a good discussion here as far as that beef side. And this is great. So 19% over last year, strong sales, the best in, like you said, I'm going to say 4 or 5 weeks here. So strong beef numbers reported. And this is very sorely needed, especially when we're going to start determining this week's cash cattle trade for the non-FCE numbers. Hopefully we'll get maybe a little support on this end from the beef numbers. Over on the pork, though, this 21,000 tons of sales for total sales of the past week, that was pretty darn good. In fact, it was about, almost even with last year, but continuing this trend, running about 8% over last year for total sales. So pork numbers not that exciting, but we've done a good job so far up to this point already.
Well, and the thing to keep in mind, and I'll remind everybody, when they look at the pork number at 21,000, yes, it's lower than the beef, but if you look at last week, it was way up in the 30,000 range, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, 37,000 tons for that very amazing sale from last week.
Yeah, so I mean, we're comparing it against what was just a stellar, exceptional week last week on the pork exports. So yeah, it was down 42% from last week, but we're coming down from some very lofty levels there. I see where the key buyer on the beef side would be Japan, 7,700 tons. Hong Kong checked in for 5,100. On the pork side, it looks like South Korea was the biggest buyer at 5,300 tons, and Mexico was in for about 5,100 tons. Is that a change, or is that pretty normal for those buyers?
You know, it is normal here for Mexico. They are a very key buyer here for us, so that's not too surprising. The South Korea numbers are pretty good. 5.3. This is a very impressive number for South Korea. So as I mentioned here, and you brought up the point there, we're coming off some great sales here, so I wouldn't get too excited about suggesting that today's numbers are mixed or even neutral. Overall, export sales have been a big success on the pork side.
Yesterday, on the midday pork carcass cutout value update, we had just a crazy divergence between the ham sales and what was going on in the pork belly market. On the pork side of things, at midday, we had the ham sharply higher and the bellies down about $4. Well, now, at the end of the day yesterday, USDA reported the hams retained those strong gains, not quite what they were at midday, but still $3.59 higher on the day. The belly market went down over $2, down $2.06 yesterday afternoon. And we were talking about the fact that I guess the wholesale buying is fully underway for the ham market here heading into Thanksgiving and Christmas.
It is. In terms of long-term procurement, that is going on. And in addition to that, we do also have featuring for this National Pork Month, which is October here. So this is a key time to maybe get a nice seasonal bounce. Usually these seasonal rallies only last 2 or 3 weeks here for us, and then we go right back down to hit some fall lows in November. But at this point, we're very happy to see what we can as far as what's been going on these past few days of support in this wholesale pork market.
Rich, great stuff. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Talk to you again soon. Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. Janet, the table is yours.
All right. Well, thanks for kicking things off for us, Marlon.